The Carolina Panthers are over a week into training camp, and the team has really been on the grind, getting these practices in, building the chemistry, and preparing for this upcoming season. But unfortunately, some things that happen when training camp occurs is the injury bug. And the injury bug has bit the Panthers in particular a little bit harder on the defensive side, and even more specifically, the linebacker position. Now, you can't say injuries are part of the game, but the Panthers were already pretty thin at the linebacker position coming into the year. Having multiple starters out at linebacker position can be devastating for the Panthers going forward. So in this video, we're going to talk about if they should be panicking and looking for proper solutions and maybe insurance for the regular season for that linebacker position. We're starting right now.
Let's go, man. Let's get it popping, man. Another day to be blessed to be out here, man. Hey, let's get it, man. Squad on 3, 1, 2, 3.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Aaron Duncan here at the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk, and I start off every video by saying, "What up, dude?" And here on the Necessary Bluntness, I give a recap and analysis of the NFL, in particular, the Carolina Panthers. So if this is your first time being on this channel, you have to hit the subscribe button, man, and the bell icon. The bell icon is going to make sure you get a notification every time I drop a video, because I go live, I do podcasts, I do different live streams and different analysis videos like this. So if you don't want to miss when I go live and do stuff like that, you got to hit the notification bell. That way you get those anytime they happen. And please, please, please give this video a thumbs up, because it really helps me out in the algorithm and gets the word out to other Panthers fans. So help me out. But before I get into my points, let me know down below in the comments, how are you feeling about the linebacker position? I know we think our defense can be pretty elite this year, but if anything has a weak spot, it's probably the linebacker position on this defense. So let me know down below in the comments how you feel about our linebacker position overall. So our starting linebacker core obviously is Shaq Thompson, Denzel Perryman, and Jermaine Carter Jr. Now, of course, Shaq Thompson, he's a Ron Rivera disciple. He's been here since the Gettleman days, you know. And of course, Jermaine Carter was a Ron Rivera product, but he really hasn't got a chance to get much playing time until this year, where he'll be a full-time starter under Matt Rhule. The newest addition is Denzel Perryman, the hard-hitting linebacker out of the University of Miami. But most recently, he was a Los Angeles Charger before becoming a free agent and signing with the Panthers. However, behind those guys, there leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to depth. You know, we have Clay Johnson, who the team seems to have a little bit of faith in. But besides that, there's not really anybody of note to kind of sing home about. And that's not to write these guys off like they won't be good. They just lack the experience and the pedigree coming out of college to prove to me, have me feeling pretty good about what would happen if one of our starters were to go down. But as I previously stated, as these dog days start to add up, we've seen that guys like Shaq Thompson, who left the Panthers Fan Fest with some lower leg tightness, Denzel Perryman has been missing practice also with the same kind of issues, and Jermaine Carter Jr. being the only linebacker that's a starter, or projected starter at least, that's been in the lineup on a day-to-day basis. But the downside is he doesn't have much experience when it comes to being a full-time starter. So you got to be a little nervous if you're a Panthers fan or the Panthers coaching staff. And head coach Matt Rhule hasn't been very forthcoming when it comes to information, according to Shaq. Obviously, we've seen Shaq progress from being out completely to being in the green jersey, which means that he's limited and he's possibly going to return. But when we asked Matt Rhule about certain things, he said, "Oh, I'm just holding him out for the padded practice." The padded practices came, we didn't see Shaq. Another padded practice came, still didn't see Shaq. We asked him about Denzel Perryman. He didn't really give us exactly where it was. He said it was either his groin or his hamstring, but it's a soft tissue injury. That's all we know. But what we do know is that Denzel Perryman has a history of being hurt in his NFL career, which is part of the reason why he was let go by the Chargers. If you actually look at the numbers, he has not played a full season yet in his career because of those injuries. And my biggest thing on him is because he's an undersized inside linebacker, but he is a hard hitter. When you have that combination, he tends to play bigger than his size really dictates. And when you're that reckless and have that much reckless abandon for your body, when you make these hard hits, you can get hurt, and that's what type of stuff happens. So it kind of is what it is, and you're inherent in that risk when it comes to Perryman. But of course, it's 2021. We have to take other factors into consideration. And the other factor is the fact that Denzel Perryman is not vaccinated. So for all we know, he could get COVID and test positive for it, or get exposed to somebody that has COVID and have to be out on the COVID disabled list. Then we're down a starter again also that way without him even getting hurt. So when you pile those two things about him, with the lack of vaccination and his lack of health consistently, you have to have some kind of concern to be able to have somebody behind him that you can count on just in case he's out at any time. But when Denzel Perryman was healthy, it seems like Matt Rhule and company have been putting Jermaine Carter in there on certain personnel sets over Denzel Perryman. You know, Jermaine Carter's natural position is inside linebacker, but we're trying to play him at outside just to be able to give a little change up and get our 3 best linebackers on the field, which is understood. However, if we're going to think that Jermaine Carter gives us the better chance to win when it comes to an inside linebacker over Denzel Perryman, that kind of leaves an odd man out, and we have an outside linebacker position that we're lacking on. Now, there are a few ways that we can overcome this, because with Phil Snow, our defensive coordinator, we'll be running a multiple defense. But from what it seems like early on in camp, the 3-4 will be the base. And when you have a 3-4, you only need 2 inside linebackers. Our outside linebackers will be Hassan Riddick and Brian Burns coming off the edge. So you can make up for it there. Obviously, we know Jeremy Chinn made the transition from linebacker last year to safety this year. But in emergency situations, could we see Jeremy Chinn move down to the box in certain personnel sets and be that de facto linebacker again? It's highly possible when you have such a shortage of linebacker depth and talent at the point we are right now. But it is a good sign that Jermaine Carter is playing well enough at this point. We know we heard on record that when Matt Rhule first came in, those 2 guys weren't on the best of terms, and that's the reason why we had Tahir Whitehead in there so long, when it was pretty obvious that Tahir Whitehead wasn't that good of a player, and Jermaine Carter was the obvious better option when he got the opportunity. Now it seems like they have a good relationship, and Matt Rhule has pretty much been bragging about Jermaine Carter and the amount of work he's put in and the amount of progress that he's made since he's been here as a coach.
It's a good question. Jermaine's very active, very vocal in terms of making the communication checks. He's right a lot. You know, he's up in the 230s now. You know, I think when I got here he was like 218, so he looks like a big linebacker. So I think we see some good things from him. You know, when we put the pads on and get into the games and all that, that's when the next step for him has to happen. But I've been pleased with him so far.
So besides shifting around our linebackers like Jermaine Carter, bringing Jeremy Chinn as a possible linebacker, and maybe running the 3-4 base a little bit more than we probably expected to, another alternate solution, and as of right now, is we could possibly kick the tires on free agent veteran, the former Seahawk, KJ Wright. And not only bring his name up because, one, like I said, he's a 10-year vet, he's a former Seahawk, and he has that previous kind of relationship with our current GM, Scott Fitter, from his time in Seattle. Scott Fitter is part of the staff and the general management that drafted KJ Wright and saw them win Super Bowls and saw how effective he was next to Bobby Wagner for all those years in Seattle. So if anybody knows KJ Wright, it's Scott Fitter. So I think that is a strong option, but there is popularity out there that KJ Wright could be picked up by somebody in the meantime pretty quick. They're kind of just sitting on G, waiting on O, and waiting for some injury to happen. Will the Panthers have that happen to them and they can kick the tires on him? I don't know how fast it happens. I don't know if it even happens. But that's something outside of this roster that could be a solution for our linebacker depth problem. And if we end up having to shift Jermaine Carter inside and we don't know what happens to Perryman, KJ Wright could be the option to come in as that outside linebacker and be there. That I know I want this defense to be elite, and I want to make sure we cover all our bases and get ahead of any kind of problems that could come up during the regular season. So that's why I'm proposing this solution and asking if we should be panicking right now. And I'll say right now, I'll say maybe a light panic, just because you need to have some kind of insurance in place and have some kind of contingency plan. Obviously, they're not telling us in the media. This is just my thoughts, but I think they're having similar discussions from what I said behind closed doors. So hopefully, knock on wood, everybody stays healthy and everything goes according to plan. We have this top 10, top 5 defense that I'm expecting us to have, and the linebackers are the heavy, hard hitters that I know they can beat, because Jermaine Carter, Denzel Perryman, and Shaq Thompson are definitely known for being some heavy hitters. So I'm excited to see how those guys can run and go get it. But without further ado, you guys let me know down below in the comments, how are you feeling about the linebacking core after I broke it down? How do you feel about any of these contingency plans and insurance plans I brought up? Let me know how you feel about it. But without further ado, I'm signing off. I'll see you next time. Peace.